I'm James Driver. I'm a psychotherapist from Christchurch, New Zealand. I specialise in video gaming addiction, and I completed my master's research into that topic as part of my training. There's not a lot of research done on the course of gaming addiction specifically, and not with young people either. But if we look at some of the closest research that is available, so for example around the natural course of gambling addictions or other behavioural addictions, that research seems to show that the majority of people who experience an addiction will naturally recover from it, and most of those without any form of intervention. Of course, there are some people who require some help, require some assistance, and will struggle to recover without it, and many more for whom their recovery might be sped up if they had appropriate support and help. So I think it's very important that the help is available, but actually the natural course of addictions, as the research shows, does tend to be recovery over time. I think the most important thing is to approach it from a position of curiosity, from a desire to understand, what's going on for the young person. Because games meet a lot of these different psychological needs, it means that people game for quite different reasons sometimes. And until we can really understand for this particular young person why they might be gaming, it's going to be hard for us to really help them effectively with it. So in terms of the messages that we can convey, I think conveying that there are alternative ways to meet those same needs, that there are other ways that they can experience the positive effects of gaming, and support them to actually find and engage with those things. I think that's really important. In terms of things that are less helpful, I think it's very natural for parents to want to try and control and limit the gaming, and up to a point that can be useful. It can provide sort of more time for the kids to engage in other things. But there's a risk with that, I think, that it becomes a sort of an ongoing conflict between the parent and the child, and that conflict creates a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety for the young person, who may turn more to gaming in order to avoid that kind of stress and conflict. So I think there's a very fine balance that needs to be found between setting appropriate limits, but also kind of maintaining the ongoing dialogue about it, an ongoing willingness to understand and to listen. I think there's three parts to that. There's the talking about it and understanding that we've already discussed, and then there's supporting them, helping them to find alternative ways to meet those same needs. So helping them to find other ways to get a sense of community and belonging, perhaps through sports teams or hobby groups. Other ways to experience a sense of competency and accomplishment, again, it could be through hobbies or other activities, family games. So finding and helping them to meet these needs in other ways, basically. And then the third part of it, I think, is the modelling that the parents themselves provide around technology use, around how they meet their own needs in these ways. So just as an example, if a parent comes home from work, they've had a stressful day, and they deal with that stress by watching television or having a drink, the kid's going to learn that one of the ways to deal with stress is to distract yourself. So providing and modelling alternatives, that there's other ways to deal with difficult feelings, that there are other ways to experience connection, is really important, I think, so that kids know that these other options are available. And I think an important part of this as well is recognising that in modelling these behaviours and in showing alternatives, that the kid may not take them up immediately, but if they reach a point where they discover for themselves that the games are starting to be destructive, they'll know that those alternatives are available. They'll feel more able to get away from the gaming and engage in those other things. I think, you raise a very good point, that it's very difficult, actually, I think, to find more balanced narratives and more balanced kind of analysis of gaming and gaming addiction. There is a very polarised debate around it, particularly in the popular media. So I don't have any sort of immediate resources I can suggest. I've put some information together on my website. Another one that looks more at the kind of the commercial models around games, but also looks at players' behaviour and psychology around that, which is quite useful, is a site called Gama Sutra. That's worth looking up as well. There's some very interesting articles on there. And I think also the work of a number of the sort of psychologists and therapists who've studied behavioural addictions more generally, a lot of those things are translatable to gaming as well. So academics like Lance Dodds or Stanton Peele both have done a lot of work around, I suppose, the less standard addictions, and I think those can tell us a lot about understanding gaming addiction as well. It is very difficult to find sort of people who are experienced working with this issue at the moment. It's obviously an emerging area of concern, and so people are still getting skilled up to work with it. There is some information on my website at netaddiction.co.nz, which refers to some of the places people can go for help. And I'm aware that within Australia, at least, there are some treatment centres now available around internet and gaming addiction. But I think the unfortunate reality at the moment is that very often there aren't places for people to go with this specific issue, and the best that's often available would be clinicians who are experienced working with other behavioural addictions like gambling, compulsive shopping, and so on. I don't think it's realistic to hope that we can prevent it altogether. I think, as history has shown us with other addictions, there's always going to be people who are susceptible to that. And I think it's really important as well for parents to kind of be aware of the natural course of addictions and the reality that even when they're doing everything right, even when they're maintaining the lines of communication, they're supporting the kid to find alternatives, it may not have an immediate effect. And at the same time, it's still really important that they do that, because what happens with most addictions is at a certain point a person realises the cost that it's having, the negative impacts that the addiction's having on their life. And at that point, if they know that there are people that they can turn to, people they can get support from, and they know that there are alternatives available, they're going to be in a much better place to challenge that addiction and overcome it. So for parents to be aware that the things that they're doing to try and support their kids, even if they're not having an impact now, may have a very significant impact in the future. I think it's important to hold in mind.